Good morning. There we go. Welcome to all of you with us here in the sanctuary, and welcome to all of you who are viewing us online. We are happy that you have chosen to join us. The Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Flint strives to be a progressive and welcoming community in which people are free to be themselves without fear. My name is Kathy Frazee, and I will be your substitute worship associate today. Unfortunately, Chris Monk is feeling under the weather, and we hope that she feels better soon. In fact, quite a few of the crew today, back in the tech room, there are many people filling in for people that aren't doing well. If you are a visitor today, we are happy that you chose to attend. Please join us for coffee hour. Will it be downstairs today? Upstairs, okay. So upstairs, right out here in our narthex, and that will be following the service. If there's anything we can do to help you feel more comfortable here at our church, please ask someone with a name tag. And if you would like more information about Unitarian Universalism or this congregation, please feel free to talk with one of our ministers, and their contact information can be found at uuflint.org. And we also have a weekly email newsletter, and I don't think I see a card. Oh, here's a card. If you'd like to receive that, please fill out this card that's in the seat back in front of you, and you can place it on the table at the back. We do have announcements today, and many of them are on the back of your order of service. If you'll take a minute to look at those, I would like to quickly highlight a few of them. Next week, December 17th, we will have a special Sunday with events for children and adults. We'd love for you to take flyers to your family and friends for the children's event, and that does require an RSVP. And this year, Christmas Eve falls on a Sunday, so a special note is that the service will be at 10:30 a.m. in the morning, and there'll be one service only that day, and that will be followed by holiday refreshments. And Raina Bick asked me to let you know, you may have seen in the e-newsletter update, that all 27 children have been covered and given gifts that we mentioned last Sunday. But we still encourage you to fill the needs in the bins. There's still a need for gift cards and items for the various agencies. So I think there's more information on the back of your order of service about that too. And also Ruth is still collecting. Maybe, will you be downstairs, Ruth? Okay, collecting for our gifts for our staff. They need those gifts. They're well deserved, so. It is now my pleasure to talk about this month's Secondary Sunday Special Offering. This month's recipient is the First Nations Development Institute. As many of you know, our congregation acknowledges that our church sits on land once owned by Michigan's indigenous peoples, and that we support them. Our congregation also voted to make a yearly donation to an indigenous-led agency. Since their founding, the First Nations Development Institute has reached over 73,000 people with their programs. Their work focuses on food, health, housing, and youth educational programs. They also work to financially empower and strengthen Native communities through tailored programs and outreach. For example, in 2021, they issued 40 scholarships to Native American students. We hope that you will help support this very important work, and you can make an offering as you leave today at the table at the back. Cash is always welcome, but if you write a check, please make sure your checks are marked Second Sunday. Or you can go to the donate page of our website at uuflint.org and use the box marked Second Sunday Offering. And we thank you. And now if you'll join me, oh, wait a minute, let's light the chalice first. I was gonna go right for the covenant. All right. There is a light that shines beyond all things on earth, beyond the highest, the very highest heavens. This is the light that shines in your heart. And now we can do the covenant. Please join me. Recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service, we gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice.
This is the part of the service where I tell you about corrections to the order of service for which I'm responsible, the mistakes for which I'm responsible. Lynn is doing the sermon today, not Jerry, myself. So, and our opening words. Let there be light, the light of joy, the light of happiness, and the light of contentment. May it illuminate our paths and fill our lives with peace. And let there be dark, for it is from our dark places that we are brought forward, tried and tested, and impelled towards growth. It is in these places that we realize compassion and learn to love. And there was day, and there was night, and there was joy, and there was sorrow, and it was good.
We get to sing, yay! Let's all stand and we're going to sing Deck the Halls with Boughs of Holly. Sing out, please. Deck the halls with boughs of holly, la 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 la.
love saying lads and lasses. It's just cool.
After our words for meditation and after our time of silence, you'll be invited to come forward and light a candle of joy or concern if you like. And of course, you can also do the same at the back of the sanctuary if you prefer. And remember, you can also write down a joy or concern in the book at the back of the sanctuary, and we'll make sure it gets into the weekly e-newsletter, the e-update. Our meditation words this morning are those of Howard Thurman. Christmas returns as it always does, with its assurances that life is good. It is the time of lift to the spirit, when the mind feels its way into the commonplace and senses the wonder of simple things, an evergreen tree, familiar carols, merry laughter. It is the time of illumination, when candles burn and old dreams find their youth again. It is the time of pause, when forgotten joys come back to mind and past dedications renew their claim. It is the time of harvest for the heart, when faith reaches out to mantle all high endeavor, and love whispers its magic word to everything that breathes. Christmas returns, as it always does, with its assurance that life is good. Let's enjoy the silence. Amen.
In her book, Learning to Walk in the Dark, former Episcopal priest Barbara Brown Taylor says that she knew she needed to know more about darkness, the physical, psychological, spiritual, and theological kind. Taylor says that the lights had gone off in her life due to the fear of dementia, the absence of God, the loss of loved ones, the melting of polar ice caps, and the suffering of children. So she decided to study darkness. In the following excerpt, Taylor describes how this led her to one of the largest cave complexes in the country. Hearing about her book, retired Presbyterian minister Rockwell and his wife Marion invite Taylor to their home in West Virginia to experience the total darkness of the Wild Oregon Cave. Taylor now describes the adventure. After we had suited up, tested our lamps, and put on our backpacks, the three of us clumped along the wooden walkway to the mouth of the cave, a huge opening like the mouth of a whale with vines hanging from the top lip. On this threshold between dark and light, it is still possible to go either way, farther in or back out. There was a level path under my feet, a metal handrail, and electric lights every 6 feet so I could see where I was going. Following the path a little further, I followed Rockwell and Marion into the unlit hopper room. Rockwell told me that this is where we would practice sitting in the dark for the first time. After we chose our spots, we turned out our headlamps and we let the dark have us. The eclipse was total. There was no moon. There was not a sound to be heard in this cave. My ears were as blind as my eyes. There was no way to tell time, which meant there was no rush. There was no light, which means I didn't have to worry about how I look. There was no one beside me, which meant that I did not have to come up with anything to say. Above all, there was no threat. Nothing frightened me. I did not know what to make of that. I had not been in the cave long enough. Soon after we left the hopper room, we came to an iron gate, blocking the passage ahead. It was the solid dividing line between the tourist part of the cave and the wild part of the cave where we would go. We left the level path behind us. We left the handrail and the electric lights, and we went forward. I thought about all the great spiritual leaders whose lives changed in caves. Buddha meditated regularly in them. Muhammad spent a lot of time in small mountain caves a couple of miles outside of Mecca, where he meditated and prayed for days at a time. Jesus was born in a cave. Like most Westerners, I always thought he was in a stable in Bethlehem, a wooden structure, a lean-to, filled with straw. That was until I went to the Church of the Nativity in the West Bank. There I learned that caves made the best stables. No wind whistling through the boards, no predators sneaking up behind you. The traditional place of Jesus' birth is not in the Church of the Nativity, but under it, in a small cave under the altar. The cave in which Jesus rose from the dead is long gone. Today, visitors stand in line to enter a mausoleum, but it looks nothing like a hole in the ground. Whatever happened in that cave, it happened in the dark. It happened in complete silence, in absolute darkness, with the smell of damp stone and dug earth in the air. I sat deep in the heart of Organ Cave and let that sink in. New life starts in the dark. Whether it is a seed in the ground, a baby in the womb, or Jesus in a tomb, new life, it starts in the dark.
You guys don't know it, but you get to sing on this song too. Now you know it. So there's a part that the choir sings, and the only words are lean in toward the light. Can you say that? Lean in toward the light. If you sing it, it goes, lean in toward the light. Lean in toward the light. So when your part comes, Rain is going to bring you in with that, okay? Song by Kerr Newcomer, Lean In Toward the Light. Winter is the oldest season. Is this on? Test, this on? Okay, sorry, I'm sorry. I'm going to start again. Winter is the oldest season. Quietly beneath the snow, seeds are stretching out and reaching, faithful as the morning glow, carrying nothing but what you must. Let it go, shake off the dust. Today is now, tomorrow beckons. Keep practicing resurrection. The sorrows of this world will say, there's no hope, why try anyway? But every kindness, large or slight, shifts the balance toward the light. Waters winding open wide, lean in toward the light. Don't just walk when you can fly. When justice seems in short supply, let beauty be your truest guide. The shadows of this world will say, there's no hope, why try anyway? But every kindness, large or slight, shifts the balance toward the light. The prayer I pray at eventide, all left undone be put aside. When forgiveness is hard to find, help me at least to be kind. Lean in toward the light. Lean in toward the light. Lean in toward the light. Very nice, thank you.
Thank you. It's been a long time since we've had a choir sing. Yay, thank you, thank you. So I have never experienced the complete and total darkness of the bowels of a cave. But there were times in my youth, as I trudged through the knee-deep snow of Wisconsin at night to reach our outhouse, where it felt like it could not be any colder or darker. So I realize that the part of Wisconsin that I am from is just a few latitudinal degrees north of here, just a few. But as I remember it, winter began about maybe a week or so before Halloween, and it lasted well after Easter. Now that might be a tiny exaggeration. But I know we've been here a little over 5 years, and I know that people from Michigan say that they are Northerners. And I read that there's a joke that you know you are a Michigander when you know several people who have hit a deer more than once. My dad hit a deer every year. Every year. We ate a lot of venison. This is no joke. Now, I know I've talked about this before, but this is one of my best stories, so bear with me. But for the uninitiated, this is my version of the old, when I was a kid, I had to walk to school 10 miles uphill both ways, barefoot in the snow. So for a few years, while my dad first got his GED, then he went to college, and then he was trying to establish his one-man architecture company. The two of us lived in first a one-room and then like a 1.5 room, because he built on cabin. And there it is. There was running water, but there was no toilet. Now, although I became an expert at holding it, with winter daylight in very short supply, there was always going to be, at some point, every day in the winter, when I had to go outside in the cold and the dark, as we say with our dog, to do my business. Now, you might have guessed there was no heated seat in the outhouse. It was frigid. And I also constantly wondered what kind of wild creatures might be hiding in the evergreens, waiting to pounce on my little body. I was quite skinny back then. Now, my dad probably didn't understand my fear or my grumbling back then. He had built that cabin and the outhouse from lumber he had reclaimed from the house he was born in just some yards away from it. Now you can see the outhouse as well. Oh, wow, that's fancy, Jerry. Thank you. That's good. All right. So you can see. Now I may imagine that he was probably a little bit nostalgic as he would stride back and forth between those structures without a flashlight on clear nights because the Milky Way would lead the way. I mean, this was a short walk for him compared to his boyhood, when he literally did walk 1.5 miles to his one-room schoolhouse, uphill one way, and with shoes. But apparently that didn't scar him. Not like my short little winter walks to the outhouse apparently did me. Now, December 21st, as you know, marks the winter solstice this year, the shortest day of the year. It's called Yuletide in ancient times, and still Yuletide in earth-centered traditions today. And it was a great celebration, heralding the time when the earth would be bathed in sunlight for longer and longer periods of time each day until spring would arrive again. Ancient peoples welcomed that darkness because it would bring relief from the intense labor of spring and summer and fall. It also brought them cooler temperatures and was necessary for seeds to grow in the fertile earth. Later, Christians saw the birth of Jesus, the Son of God and light of the world, as the fulfillment of a promise at this time of year. So all in all, this was largely a pretty hopeful time. But today, there are a fair number of people that dread it, partly because of the cold, depending on where they live, and mostly due to the dark. Now, some people do have very real seasonal depression or the more serious seasonal affective disorder, and they need treatment, medications, light therapy, etc. But there are others that for a host of reasons, physical or even metaphysical, just cannot embrace the darkness, or as the song goes, embrace the darkness as their old friend. Now, author Barbara Brown Taylor from this morning's reading says that in the history of the human race, eliminating the darkness has always been pretty high on our agenda. And while light and dark are natural occurrences, and both were deemed necessary, as civilizations advanced, the connotations about light and dark changed. Light became associated with all that is holy and desirable, while darkness became synonymous with negativity and despair. Darkness was equivalent to the unknown and the undiscovered and was to be, in general, avoided. It began to represent death, chaos, and even the supernatural. The birth of baby Jesus also was associated with the bright star. That reinforced the connection between ultimate goodness and light, while the dark was akin to evil and a rejection of God. So these negative connotations about dark persist, and they are especially prevalent during this time, the holidays. Greeting cards have probably started arriving in your mailboxes just as they have in ours. And those are pretty much brightness and light. I'll bet you have not received a one that says, embrace the cold, dark winter. Or, how'd you like to spend the longest night of the year with me, honey? I think I might make money on that. So Jerry and I were driving Friday night, at night, and we practically needed sunglasses to get past some of the blinding lawn displays. I don't mind them, really. Some of them are kind of fun, but Jerry prefers what he calls the tastefully understated decorations. I'm not sure if that's how I do up our house. I might be borderline. But this is the season of high contrast. It's mostly bright lights. I mean, you can see we've got lights here, we've got lights out there. Not surprisingly, Christmas songs lean decidedly negatively toward the dark as well. O come, Emmanuel lyrics include bright and morning star, dispel the shadows of the night and turn our darkness into light. Hark the herald angels sing has the lines, light and life to all he brings. Silent night refers to Son of God loves pure light. There are many more, but you get the idea. So Taylor says that songs like that and churches in general tend to perpetuate these pro-light themes. Because for most, the last thing churches want to talk about is embracing the dark. Because darkness is synonymous with sin, ignorance, spiritual blindness, and even death. Now, Taylor says that this duality creates problems for some members, and it's even one of the reasons she left the ministry. When everything is light and positive, and that's good in a church, and you have a problem, you either have to deal with it on your own or deny that it even exists. Because she believes that most churches only want to see happy people in the pews. If you're unhappy, you are treated as though something is wrong with you. So she has seen such people treated as dark, as negative, and she has seen them, including herself, get the message that they are no longer welcome, that they no longer have a place with all the positive folks who are basking in the light of the church. Taylor then said that people who feel rejected by the church can always turn to self-help books. But once again, most of the bestsellers are about how to avoid various kinds of darkness. Of course, if books aren't your thing, there's TV shows, podcasts, or monthly internet subscriptions for the low price of $9.99 to help you avoid darkness. Amazon or Sharper Image, I saw, will gladly sell you light mirrors or glasses. I think they're on sale right now for $174.99. Honestly, I did. I looked yesterday. But almost all of these resources provide strategies to help you crawl out of your dark corners, but hardly ever encourage you to actually explore them. Therefore, Taylor, a growing number of therapists, researchers, and spiritual directors say that they wouldn't start there. Educator and Quaker Parker Palmer said that you have in yourself not only the forces of light and life, but also the forces of darkness and death. And that's important to know. Each of us contains multitudes. And if we walk around thinking, I'm only light and life, and it's those other folks who are creating darkness and death, we start engaging in enemy making, which is really about our refusal to embrace and acknowledge that those forces exist in ourselves. That's not easy to do, but it is necessary. And I know, we talk about this all the time. You hear it all the time everywhere, here and out there. But it really is part of growing up to acknowledge both parts, whether we're 11 or 7 or 8 times that. Acknowledge that we are made up of not just perfect light, but also the dark. That means we accept our whole selves. It also makes it possible for us to show compassion to other people and for them to show compassion for us. But if you can't see both sides of yourself, Palmer says, then you believe only that other guys are dark and trouble's sure to follow. Years ago, when the Black Lives Matter movement was just becoming really widespread, I was serving a church in Ohio. And I almost immediately put up on our electric sign, Black Lives Matter. Like a lot of you churches did. I'm sure you guys, that's when you put your sign up here. Well, within hours, just a few hours, I received a call objecting to the sign from a person who was less than polite, shall I say. The caller said, I must hate white police officers. That was what I was saying by that sign. White, black, dark, light. Just those words are very sensitive to some people. Now, obviously, the goal is to balance dark and light, both within ourselves and out in the world. But it's a delicate matter when we try to reconcile those two things when, for centuries, one of them has been demonized. And even in our childhoods, we've most likely been shaped to think about one as better than the other. How does one embrace something we are conditioned as kids to fear, or at least to be so cautious about? So, as a kid, right, we're told, come inside now, it's getting dark. Or how many of us had night lights in our rooms, or at least right out in the hall? Or we always ask, can we keep the light on? And I bet you some of us probably said bedtime prayers to guard us as we slept. And most children at some point think that there is something scary in the dark under our beds or in our closet. But only when it's dark. Because daytime was when we played, when we got our sustenance, when we went to school and saw our friends. It's when the good stuff of life happens, the daylight. Nighttime was when the monsters come out. And sometimes still do. When I was training to be a minister in California, all of us are required to work 3 full months as a chaplain somewhere. Sometimes they do prisons. Mostly we do hospitals. So I trained as a chaplain at San Francisco General Hospital. I chose the AIDS ward and overnight in the ER. Now, if you wanted an intense experience, the AIDS ward in San Francisco in the 90s and overnights in the ER, that is what you did. And if you really wanted something, do it in the dark. Statistically, more people let go and die at night. The ER also saw many more shootings, stabbings, and car accidents during the overnight shift. So that's where I went. But that wasn't the experience that helped me make peace with the dark. I had befriended the dark and the winter and the cold many years before that. And I want to tell you about it. So, I can imagine that my dad had had about enough of my incessant complaining. I think Jerry calls it my only child syndrome. My incessant complaining about the outdoor facilities by the time we had reached this winter in the 70s. Now, whether by ingenious planning or by chance, by my father, that year he managed to convert me to be a lover of all things winter. So a year or two before, Dad's best friend taught him how to cross-country ski. And in February of '78, his friend and his wife took us, the two of us, with them an hour and a half north to something called the Birkebeiner. That is now the largest cross-country ski race in North America. It's going to celebrate its 50th year in 2024. They expect 10,000 participants, they say, this year. Well, when my dad and his friend entered, it was its 5th year. And they joined about 3,000 skiers that year. There's a picture of it. So as a novice, my dad just did the half race, but his friend did the whole 55K. So watching my dad finish, albeit toward the end of the pack, I don't remember how many hours it was, but it was a while. But it was a great moment for both of us. And he quickly gifted me with his, finishing medal. So we spent the whole weekend there. It was a luxurious lodge that his friend had rented, and we stayed with them. They had indoor toilets. We ate gourmet meals. We hobnobbed with international cross-country skiers because people came from all over to do this. I'm almost positive a guy from Norway won and a woman from Norway won, the two. And the scenery up there was magnificent, especially because at night they lit it up. It was beautiful. And people hung out outside next to bonfires. It was amazing. So whether it was by coincidence or part of my dad's master plan, I became hooked on winter. Now, I'm not sure, I don't remember if we bought my cross-country gear on the way home or not, but I do know that within days, my dad was teaching me how to cross-country ski with no complaints from me. He groomed the trails on our 9 acres around that cabin, and it went through the woods and over little hills and across the fields. He made it as easy for me as possible. And we skied both day and night. And of course, the night was particularly magical because if the moon and the stars were out, if it wasn't cloudy, the light would bounce off the snow. And it got to a point where I would beg him to do other fun winter stuff on the weekends. So we'd go skating, and we learned to downhill ski, and we went tobogganing and tubing, and we hiked in the silent winter woods. It was wonderful. And although my walks to the outhouse never got any warmer, they weren't as bad. Because at times I would even pause and I'd look up at that bright sky, or I'd listen to the crystal snow on the pine trees. And I didn't fear what might be lurking in the shadows anymore. And of course, I was fortunate because the conditions to start loving the season were ideal there. I mean, we even got to see the northern lights at times. There was no light pollution. But I don't think you have to have a wild cave nearby or be in an area where there's absolutely no city lights to be able to learn to love the dark and the cold. Research shows that 6% of the people in the U.S. who experience harsher winters have recurring major depression in the colder months, and another 14% have the winter blues. And people who live in warmer U.S. climes are not as susceptible to those ups and downs. So Fulbright scholar Carrie Leibowitz found that some cultures that have far more cold and dark than people that experience it here, they're happier year-round. So in particular, Leibowitz studied the inhabitants of Tromsø, Norway. That's an island, 70,000 people located 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle. And there she found that people looked forward to 2 months of polar nights each year. That means the sun never comes up. And the strategy she found they used, quote, to embrace winter in all its dark, icy glory, was simply practicing something called kusli. So for centuries, the people of Norway have been embracing the absence of light. They have made living long periods of time without any sunlight at all into an art form. Very loosely translated, kusli, you might say, is kind of like our word for cozy. It also contains elements of comfort and warmth, similar to what you may be familiar with, the Danish hygge. However, kusli goes deeper because it emphasizes social relationships and inward reflection. In addition, since there's a common Norwegian saying that there is no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing, another important part of the philosophy includes maintaining a close connection with nature, regardless of if it's night or day, and the weather. So residents of Tromsø, but also Norway in general, are statistically more positive about the cold and the dark than anywhere else in the world. Simply put, they have a wintertime mindset. They love it. The islanders look forward to 2 months of darkness because it affords them more opportunities for social gatherings. This is from these people themselves. Cuddling under blankets, the warmth of fires, drinking warm beverages, outdoor skiing and hiking, and walking dogs by the moonlight. So overall, Leibowitz said they lean into winter, as the choir talked about a few minutes ago. They lean into the light of the dark. So when Barbara Brown Taylor was in the cave and was about to have her longest sit in the dark, she had also learned to lean into the dark. She'd become so comfortable that she ventured alone into a low-ceilinged room of the cave. And just before she turned off her headlamp, she saw a long, thin fissure above her head, and there were a bunch of tiny crystals. It was gorgeous. And she noticed that a few small chunks had fallen to the floor, so she chose one of them that she saw glittered the most. And she put it in her backpack before she sat down in the total darkness. And later that evening, she unpacked her backpack in her room, and she found in it a small, dull, gray stone. She looked at it, and she said it looked like something she could have found in her gravel driveway. And she wondered what made her think that that was precious in the cave. Then she realized it wasn't the stone's fault, it was the light of the room. She turned off the lamp, and she turned on her tiny pen light and shone it at the rock, and then it became alive with light, but only in the dark. It looked again like the miniature fireworks she had seen in the cave. So then she turned the light on back in the room, and it went back to looking like a piece of gravel again. She recalled that when she had entered the cave, she had hoped for some glimpse of celestial brightness, but she never thought it would be something as small as a tiny rock. She wrote, "While I am looking for something large, bright, and unmistakably holy, my God slips something small, dark, and apparently negligible in my pocket." As I read that, it reminded me of the gift of winter that my dad gave me, which came in the form of a small piece of cheap metal on a ribbon. I don't even know where it is now. I looked for it, couldn't find it, but it's with me, especially on cold, dark winter nights. And I remember the last time that my dad and I spoke of it. It was his last December, and he was living with us, and I heard him laughing in his room. And his hearty guffaws were few and far between those last months. And I peeked in to see what he was laughing at, and he was watching the Will Ferrell movie Elf. And Buddy Elf says, "Dad, I planned out our whole day. First, we'll make snow angels for 2 hours, and then we'll go ice skating, and then we'll eat a whole roll of Toll House cookie dough as fast as we can, and then to finish, we'll snuggle." And Dad looked up and said, "Now that guy knows how to enjoy winter. Sounds like you as a kid." And looking back, I realize it was only because he had the patience to teach me.
Bonnie. Thanks for letting me borrow your beautiful new instrument. And of course, feel free to sing along as we embrace a little darkness. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, beneath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never shared. No one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fool, said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words like silent raindrops fell and echoed in the wells of silence. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made, and the sign flashed out its warning, heed the words that it was forming. And the sign said the words of the prophet are written on the subway walls, tenement halls, and whispered in the sounds of silence. Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Now, if you'll join me in a time for generosity. We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give with the faith that together we have enough. We invite you to join us as we take the collection by placing your offering in the basket as you leave, or by an online gift at uuflint.org. All gifts of treasure, time, and talent are gratefully accepted.
There is finally only one thing required of us. That is to take life whole, the sunlight and the shadows together, to live the life that is given us with courage and humor and truth. Let us extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Wake up, sunshine. Open up your sleepy eyes for me. Can't have you hiding. I've been waiting all the night. People waiting for the light. Sunshine, sunshine. Wake up, sunshine. Let me feel your warm sunlight on me. Can't have you hiding. Night was long and night was cold, but today we're one day older. Sunshine, you make my life sunshine, yeah. You know I'm talking to you. I know you're knowing it too. So just stop hiding your face. Just open your eyes and smile your smiles. I'm talking to you. Wake up, sunshine. Ooh, it's good to have you here with me. Can't have you hiding, can't imagine what I'd do, but feel so lonely without you. Sunshine, sunshine. You got to wake up, girl, and face the day ahead.
Unless anyone has a burning comment or question, yes. And then we will try to, we're running a little bit late. We can go to coffee hour.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not a fan of winter or darkness. Lynn